Welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about the biggest, most common, and sneakiest mistake that couples make. This mistake is going to prevent you from becoming or staying happily married. Now, if you or your spouse have set your intentions, for example, to communicate in healthier ways or follow through on certain promises, but inevitably you fall back into old patterns and shoot yourself in the foot, then you need to be aware of this. Because most couples, you might think that focusing on the tools, learning the skills, working on yourself, or making that commitment to positive change will be enough to move the needle long term. And so then you unwittingly tend to overlook this very powerful, nearly invisible barrier to real transformation. And that's a sure way to sabotage your marriage. So if you're in a marriage where you feel stuck in spite of all the work that you've done, this video is for you. I'm going to share how to know if you're making this mistake and sabotaging your marriage, what this problematic phenomenon actually is, and how it stops you every time from reaching your relationship goals, and then finally what you can do about it. Okay, so there's a couple signs that will tell you that you're unknowingly sabotaging your marriage. The first is if you notice that you're setting your intentions, you're learning all of the things, and you observe that you're still regularly falling back into those old habits. Maybe you do okay for a little while, but then you become continually surprised or deeply disappointed by the recurring setbacks. You or your spouse might feel regret, you might apologize and then recommit to doing better, right? You promise again and you really mean it. You're truly sincere and you have the best, most pure intentions. But then one of you slips up and then it feels like all is lost. It's a terrible cycle that makes couples feel super hopeless and then they end up throwing in the towel when it's not only not necessary, but it's tragic, right? When two people really love each other and they really want to make it work and they just can't because they can't break out of these old patterns. Another way that you can tell if you're making this mistake and overlooking this invisible barrier, which I'm going to get into shortly, is that the printout of your life and your relationship is not what you consciously want. So if you say that you want a healthy marriage, but you don't have one, then there's a disconnect between what your deeper psyche or your subconscious mind can allow into your experience, in other words, what it's able to create and sustain, and what your conscious mind desires and what you can imagine for yourself. How your life and relationship looks and all the things that you don't have that you want, or the things that you have that you don't want, those things are all reflections of your old programs, your default modes of relating. That's what the deepest part of you has chosen, right? So that's the sign that you're dealing with this invisible barrier of the subconscious mind. You just haven't been able to maintain the changes even if you can do them short term. Now, the reason for this and the real problem that interferes with marital transformation is that your intentions and all of the tools that you've learned and the work that you've done and the knowledge and information that you've gained, the insights from therapy, all that stuff, it's not enough. Because underneath all that conscious knowledge are your subconscious limiting beliefs, which are much more powerful. Now, to give you an idea of how much more powerful these are, consider that the subconscious mind is literally 10 million times more powerful than your conscious goals. So that basically means that your conscious intentions, your conscious goals, and your capacity to make those changes that you want are 10 million times weaker than those old programs that you might not even be aware of. Now, Bruce Lipton talks about this in his amazing book called Biology of Belief. I highly recommend it. And he writes that the subconscious mind processes 40 million bits of information per second versus the conscious mind, which only processes 40 bits of information per second. And all of these core beliefs are formed, or most of them are formed, in the first 7 years of our life when we're just sort of downloading the messages around us. We're in a dreamlike state and we're making meaning out of these messages from our environment. And then those become hardwired into us at a level that we don't even recognize. So it's not even your fault that you internalize these beliefs about yourself and how relationships are supposed to go. Those were installed before you even had a choice. And these programs are now running the show, whether you like it or not. That's why you keep having these setbacks. So what can you do about it? The first thing that you should do is you got to stop beating yourself up, right? When you make a decision to do something differently in the future and then you fail, don't feel bad about yourself because you're just going against your old programs, right? It's like trying to hold back a tidal wave with your arm. It's pretty much not possible, and it's the way the brain is wired. So the only way to create real and truly lasting change is to get your subconscious programs on board with what your goals are. And the only way that you can change your relationship is to change the old beliefs that are holding you back. And this is because if you don't get them aligned with your conscious goals or your intentions, then those old programs are just going to rise up and sabotage your progress every single time because it's so powerful. And self-sabotage, this is a huge topic in any realm of personal change, right? Like fitness or business, whatever it is. And it can show up as anything. It can be anxiety about having done something positive that's outside your comfort zone. Maybe you set a limit or you expressed how you really felt and it was positive change, but now you have all this fear, like knots in your stomach, racing heart or desire to run. It can show up as guilt. It can show up as self-doubt and grief. And worst of all, it can show up as negative self-talk. You may notice you're telling yourself something like, healthy, happy marriages aren't for me, that's for other people. Or maybe that you're not worthy or safe or capable of having a healthy marriage for life. And the hardest part is that these voices will actually get stronger the more that you're moving in the right direction when you don't address those deepest beliefs at the subconscious level. But here's the good news. If you can successfully internalize new beliefs and literally reprogram your subconscious programming, you can consciously transform your relationship without struggle. You can take what you've learned and make it stick. Because it's all about what we believe we can do or have or achieve in the end. Maybe you've heard this quote by Henry Ford. I love this quote. If you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Now, I'm not able to teach you how to change your limiting beliefs in this video, but I will say that it's essentially going to involve activating both hemispheres of your brain at the same time and creating a visceral, emotional, and kinesthetic experience while you're internalizing these new belief statements. And there's several modalities that can help you accomplish this. There's NLP, there's psychological kinesiology, there's self-hypnosis, somatic work, EMDR for trauma, there's tapping. But today I just want to leave you with some guiding questions that you have to ask yourself in order to start this process of breaking the invisible barrier to those old programs and creating the relationship that you truly want. The first thing you have to do is ask yourself, what kind of relationship do I want to have? And that seems like such a simple question, right? But sometimes we have to get really clear on that. What relationship do you want to have? It's easy to see what you don't want. It's easy to see what is the problem, right? But how can you flip that around and articulate that into the kind of relationship that you want to have? Then once you're clear on that, and I've talked about this before around getting very clear on your vision, then you're going to ask yourself, who do I need to be in order to have that and to keep that and sustain that relationship? Who do I need to be in order to not only create the dynamics that I want to have, but to maintain them for the long term? And finally, what must I believe in order to be that person? Once you know what you want and you know who you need to be, then you can laser focus on the beliefs that you're going to need to internalize in order to support that vision. Because once you believe it, you become it. So get really specific. What do you need to believe about yourself? What do you need to believe about the world? What do you need to believe about love? What are the core beliefs that you have to have? Now, one question I get a lot is where people will say, if I pick a belief, am I just making something up? And what if it's not true? I'm lying to myself. And I always say that your consciously chosen beliefs are in no way less arbitrary or untrue than the beliefs that you inherited through the messaging of your environment as a child. So in other words, nothing that you assume is true from the past that feels true, that informs you now, is actually any more true than what you decide to be and make true now. Right? So take control, be in charge of that, break the invisible barrier holding you back, because nothing is more worthwhile. This is where the meat is. This is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck in all the work that you've done. Now, if you like this video, be sure to check out my other video that's called The Invisible Barrier to Saving Your Marriage, or the masterclass that's in the video description. Even better, if you like my content, please subscribe to my channel. This will make sure not only that you don't miss any of my videos, but that they reach and support more people to create healthy marriages. That's it for now, and I'll see you next time.